Begin. Welcome to the week one go-to session. This is the first session of 4 we're going to be holding this month. Welcome to those who are in attendance. Welcome to English composition. I look forward to working with each of you this month. Hold on, let me get my presentation going here. So yeah, this first lecture, I'm going to make some quick comments about the course in general, but most of this lecture is going to be devoted to diving right in. What are we working on this month? We are working toward a single essay, by the way, okay? But we will be taking it step by step, and each week is taking us, through a different step of the writing process, working toward that single essay, which I'll reveal just in a few minutes once I get past the general stuff. But yeah, we're going to dive right into what we're doing this month, and also more specifically what we're going to do this week, including the very first assignment. So okay, so you have access to all this information. I forget what it looks like on your end. Here, let me get away from the presentation for a second and bring up the FSO platform. Okay, so this is our course. Things look maybe a little bit different because this is how I see things as an instructor. Actually, we move some things around. Give me a second. I want to check something real quick. Okay, so this is Meet Your Instructor, course overview. Okay. Yeah, you should be reading through all this stuff on your own. Oh, wait, there it was. Okay, there we go. Yeah, syllabus, course at a glance, all that stuff. You can find under the About page. For me, the About page, I think for me it's up here. Or no, it's here on the left, okay? About. I forget. Under a previous version of FSO, you had to click up here, About, but you can see it's on the left. I don't know if it is for students as well, but yeah, this is where you can find all that kind of good stuff to read through. I'm not going to do so in this lecture because that would be incredibly boring. But yeah, and my office hours are found under the Meet Your Instructor activity. What should I say about that? I need to fix those office hours, but they're mostly right. Okay. Can other people hear me? Let me go ahead and ask, can people hear me? Okay, so it's just Sean. Let me type something quickly to Sean. You might, you might have to leave the room and enter again. Everyone else can hear me. Yes. Okay. Here's a little slide about why you have to take this class. You can read the quotation and the percentage while I'm just quickly talking. I don't think I really have to explain this. I mean, sure, sometimes there are students who say, why do I have to take an English class? This isn't what I came to Full Sail for. But usually those comments have more to do with their previous experience, like their previous English classes they didn't like, or their instructor made them feel bad. I don't think people really argue against the importance of being able to communicate. I think, again, even people who claim that they don't like English, they do understand the importance of it. I always say, find me a successful person who isn't skilled at communication. It's funny, people who are, very successful in life, they're usually strong writers and strong speakers. So that's ultimately why you have to take this class, okay? Plus, I do think, I do think this is a painless class in some ways. It's not that difficult. Later, I'll give some tips on what you can do. Actually, I'll just jump in now. Let me get away from the screen again real quickly and go back to the list of activities. So much of this class is filled with gimme points. What do I mean by gimme points? Here you get 10% for professionalism. Basically, unless you miss assignments or do something really egregious, like insult the instructor or your fellow classmates, I mean, something really, really bad, assume that professionalism will be in the bag for you. You also have these weekly activities. Every week there's a journal response. And actually, let me go into that real quickly, because that's an activity that needs maybe a touch. It's really simple, and you can actually just skip down and just read the highlighted part. Every week, basically, you know what it is? It's like an informal quiz. Yes, write it as a response. You can write whatever you want. But what I'm looking for is proof that you've watched the lecture. Okay, so those of you who are in attendance, you just have to show me that you were here, that you paid attention, and also that you did the week's readings. Okay, so that's why it says using quotes or concepts from the reading and the lecture. Explain brainstorming, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, think of the journal entry as an informal quiz. I need to see strong evidence that the readings were completed and that the lecture has been attended or watched. I recommend writing 2 medium paragraphs. Okay, that's it, just 2 paragraphs. One that summarizes the reading, one that summarizes the lecture. That's it. If I come away with a strong sense, yes, this person has watched the lecture or attended. This person has completed the readings. I'm happy to just give it an A and move on. So really, this should be an easy grade. Same thing almost every week. Week 4, it disappears, but the first 3 weeks you have what are called the Achieve modules. And let me quickly go to McGraw-Hill. By the way, how many people here have signed up for McGraw-Hill and Turnitin.com? Obviously, you signed up for the lectures because you're here. Usually people who sign up for the lectures have also signed up for the other things. But, okay, let me go to McGraw-Hill. Where is it? There it is. Okay, good. A couple people have. I was going to do this at the end of this session, but let me go ahead and do it now. So let's go into our class for July. Oh, let me explain. I have so many things that I want to go over. So if I jump around a lot, I apologize. But the due dates here are the real due dates. Okay, so never get confused, because what I've done, and it's a little bit difficult to explain, but as you can see, if I open up, like, okay, we'll explain these in a second. These are your Achieve modules, 1 per week for the first 3 weeks. They're interactive modules. Here are the readings. Okay, so you just have to read this stuff. And they're all short. Like if I go into chapter 1, introduction, I'll have to launch it. Anyway, I won't open it but they're not as long as you think. So it says 32 pages, but it's a quick 32 pages. It's not like 32. It's not like you open up a novel like Moby Dick and have to read 32 pages from there. There are pictures. Sometimes the reading is a single a single paragraph. It's easy stuff. But you might notice, look, it's opened up for the entire month of July, right? That does not mean that these are the due dates. Okay, the due dates are what are on this page. Now, why did I set everything open for all of July? Because if you want to work ahead, you can. You want to bang out all 3 Achieve modules the very first week of classes, that's fine with me. Okay, so 1, students can work ahead. 2, and this is a bit more difficult to explain, but if I don't have it open the entire month, it's very difficult for me to see when you actually completed the activity. I can see what percentage you've completed, but yeah, it's too difficult to explain, but it's much more difficult for me unless I open it up for the entire month. Okay. Oh, Sean's reading Dune. Yeah, I like Dune. I read that maybe a year ago for the very first time and started reading the second book in this series. But yeah, we're not asking you to read Dune. So the readings are pretty light. They're pretty basic. While I'm here, let me show the Achieve modules. Okay, let me go into the student view, because this will match what you see on your end. I was going to do this near the end of the session, but why don't we get it out of the way now? And then we'll focus all of our attention on the week 1, the first major assignment, okay? So as you can see, this is how things look on your end. And everything's organized clearly for you, so there shouldn't be any confusion. And it's labeled week 1, so these are your readings. So just literally go into it, okay? Oh, I think you have to click over here to start it. And it will open up the readings. But I want to show the Achieve modules real quickly. So let me go into week 1's. Okay. So yeah, it tells you how long it should take, about an hour. Some people can finish it faster than that. Some people a little bit longer. And these are also what I call gimme points, because you get graded on your percentage. So if you complete it to 100%, which you should, you get 100. If you complete it to 78%, you get a 78. And what I wanted to show was that, okay, so the journal responses, those are in your hands completely. The Achieve modules are also in your control completely. If you hand in all your work and you act professional, this 10% is also in your hands. So I think it's like 45% of this class could be an A for you just by completing the stuff. And if nearly half your grade is an A, you can quite literally fail the rest of it and still get a C. Don't fail the rest of it. I think obviously you should aim much higher, but Yeah, the only people who do not pass this class are the ones who do not complete work. Okay, so that's my promise to you. And back to that slide that we looked at, which had the quotation, the statistic about why writing is important. Um, Whatever your previous experiences were with English class, this class is not that difficult, because even if you do feel like you struggle with writing, still you can pass this class. It is designed on purpose so that people don't, if you receive a low grade on any single writing assignment, your entire grade is not torpedoed. Okay. Um, Also, anybody can learn to write. If anybody tells you that writing is a born skill, that's complete garbage. It is not. Uh, yeah, I mean, occasionally there's some genius, like I think Truman Capote wrote his first book at like age 24, his first novel. Okay, sure, there are people like that sometimes, or Toni Morrison. But yeah, those people make us jealous. But the vast majority of people, yeah, it's not something you're born. It's not like Mozart. You're not born with this prodigy ability to play the piano or to be able to add large sums in your head without a calculator. No, writing is a skill that anybody can learn to improve in. It just takes dedication. Okay, Samuel's saying that he likes to write. Okay, awesome. Uh, so that's where I kind of begin. Anybody can learn to improve. Anybody can learn to write, and no one should be not passing this class. Okay, but anyway, I was here showing the Achieve modules. These are interactive modules, so one per week for the first 3 weeks. Please review. I just want to jump in and do it. Okay, so it will ask if you want to set up a study schedule, which you can do if you want, or you can just jump in and start answering questions. Let me skip ahead, and you can choose different ways. I'm just going to jump into complete the assignment. Okay, so, or you could choose give me 20 minutes to work, answer 4 questions in a row. I'm just going to jump into just do the assignments. Okay, and stuff like this. Read the sentence. The carton of milk in the refrigerator needs to be finished up. Use the drop-down box to choose the correct answer to complete this statement about the sentence. In this sentence, the prepositional phrase that modifies milk is carton of milk in the refrigerator. The prepositional phrase, I believe it's in the refrigerator. This would be really embarrassing if the English teacher doesn't know. Yeah. Prepositions are these small words like directional words: above, below, behind, in, around. So yeah, the carton of milk in the refrigerator. And you can be honest if you know it for sure, if you're completely unsure, because the more honest you are, it basically gauges. Okay, it's not going to keep giving you difficult questions if you keep getting them wrong. So I'm pretty confident I know it, and I'm going to click submit. And yes, my answer is correct. And you'll see what will happen. Down here, the bar moves. So I click OK, and suddenly we're at 2%. Okay, choose a correct end punctuation. All living things contain the same 20 amino acids. That's amazing. Okay. Actually, I hate this question because both these are correct. You could end with a period, or you could end with an exclamation point. Now, normally a statement like that's amazing, you would think there would be an exclamation point because it's strong, right? That's amazing. But in formal writing, you wouldn't do that. I'm going to say that I can use an exclamation point, but I'm a little bit unsure. Okay, so I'll say I think so. I'm correct. And then it moves up to 4%. Add the appropriate end punctuation in the sentence. I don't get why you just can't be quiet. By the way, if you do have any problems with these type where it asks you to enter in information, make sure you're using appropriate hardware or an appropriate browser. I use Google Chrome specifically because Mac's Safari sometimes have trouble with this. If you're using a mobile, a tablet, a phone, you might have some issues. It could be related to this. Okay. I don't get why you can't just be quiet. That is just a period. It's not a question. So I think I know it. Submit. Correct. Okay, I'm going to stop answering because I'm giving you all the answers. I know you're saying, please keep going. Let me write down the answers. But this is what it is, okay? So as soon as you get to 100%, you're done. You're finished. You get an A. So that's McGraw-Hill. Okay, so if you have any questions about that, you can write it in the chat if you like, but I'm going to get back on board. The only other thing I have to point out is notice that the due dates, okay, so this is all get started stuff, okay, that you have to read through, mostly sign up for some stuff. Oh, don't freak out if you forget to do something and it tells you got a 0. As you can see, if the weight is 0%, it doesn't really affect your grade. So I only say this because I don't want to sound like the lazy instructor, but it's kind of a pain if I have to go back in and open up the activity for people who are frustrated because they received a 0. It's much easier if I just tell you, hey, it's not worth anything. And I'm not going to take off points because you forgot to click that little complete button. Just don't sweat it. Don't sweat that stuff, okay? But anyway, week 1, as you can see, the due dates, journal, where you prove that you watched the lecture and did the readings. The Achieve module, which I just demonstrated, both of these are due on Friday, the 25th, excuse me, the 29th. And the first major activity, and this is what the rest of this lecture is going to be devoted to, this guy here, preparing to write 1.5, it's due Sunday. But then we're off, okay? Because next week is July 4th. So, yeah, we kind of have next week free. I don't have it free. I still have to work, but you can use this week however you wish. But yes, the first assignment is still due this Sunday. Okay, so let's get back on board with the lecture. I think I've covered everything in terms of overview stuff. Oh, I should mention to the late policy. We have a late policy. An assignment is due when it's due, and for each day an assignment is late, there's a 10-point deduction up to 72 hours. After 72 hours, it's a 0. My advice is I'm pretty flexible. I'm supposed to ask for like proof and doctor's notes, but I really don't want that. I don't care. Just get in touch with me. If you have to pull a double shift or if life is hectic right now, just let me know, okay? I'm pretty easygoing in terms of, sure, you can have until Monday instead of Sunday, but just don't let me know like Sunday night at the last minute. Just, yeah, let me know on Friday or Saturday that you could use an extra day, and I'll happily grant it. Oh, good question. Samuel asked, do we have a video training on July 3rd? No. Great question. I'll send out an announcement for people who haven't watched the lecture yet, even though in theory everyone should, because that journal response every week. Remember, you have to summarize both the lecture and the readings. So in theory, everybody should be watching this lecture, but in case that's not true, yeah, I'll send out an announcement. I always, because it's much easier for me, instead of creating 4 separate meetings and you have 4 separate links, I just create one link that signs us up for an entire month. But that meant that, yes, next week is also scheduled, but no, we don't meet next Tuesday. Okay. So what are we working on this month? As I mentioned at the beginning, there's only one essay in this class. There are 4 distinct writing assignments, but we're really only working toward a single short essay. By short essay, I mean around 3 pages. So not terribly long. And what are we writing about? Well, it's kind of hinted at in this image. Something that's all around us, which is advertising. The main task this month is to write a short ad analysis paper. Okay. Now, you don't get to choose the ad. Well, you do get to choose the ad, but you get to choose it from an approved list. Oh, here's a little thing about, yeah, we're essentially looking at how do advertisers reach their audiences. And let me show the list of ads real quickly. So if you go into the actual assignment, so the first major writing assignment, which is a worksheet, okay, it's a brainstorming worksheet. Let me go into the activity. You can read through all the instructions on your own. I just want to point out 2 things. First of all, 3 things. Here's the list of approved ads. So you have 5 television commercials and 3 print ads. We're going to practice looking at ads in just a moment because, yeah, right now you're probably unsure. What does that mean, ad analysis? Because, well, you'll have a much better understanding by the end of the session, I promise. Because ad analysis, it's not ad description. It's not ad summary. It's not personal response. It's not, do you like the ad? Do you not like it? No, it's literally just as one might lift the hood of a car to examine the machinery underneath. I'm asking you to do the same thing with an ad. And we're going to practice this today by looking at 3 different ads and seeing if we can identify interesting things going on. For now, though, my strong advice is do not choose an ad simply because it looks cool. Choose an ad after today's lecture based on, okay, we've gone through 3 ads, because we're going to in just a moment. Because you'll leave this session with a much better idea of what you're supposed to be looking for in an ad. Come back to this list and choose the ad where you can see lots of things going on. Or even if you can't quite put your finger on it, which ad feels like there's a lot of things going on. I'll tell you, for example, the print ads. Okay, so let me just open up one of these. Print ads are challenging. Here's one for Altoids Mints. Print ads are challenging because there's no movement, there's no sound, there's no story usually. Okay, there's just an image. So you have to, if you choose a print ad, you must be comfortable on some level talking about visual elements like color. Color is working powerfully in this ad. By color, I mean why the red for this lettering here? Why the pale green background? Why is the boy in black and white? Okay, so color is an important aspect of this ad. In general, I mean, I love print ads because I like the challenge of looking at an image and just the image. But yes, print ads are probably a bit more challenging. So commercials, I think, are maybe a little bit easier in some ways. Oh, let me just say, I always mean to eliminate this ad for Chico. I love the ad, but it's tough. Like, I always have one student, sometimes 2, who hears me say that and takes up the challenge. But yeah, it's a super cool image, but I do think this is the most challenging ad to write about. Okay, you have to be comfortable. Let's get back to the lecture because but before I say that, okay, so here's a list of ads. 2 other things. Here, let me open this in advance because we're going to need this in a bit. This is the worksheet itself. Okay. So we'll come back to this actually, but this is what you're going to fill out. It's a brainstorming worksheet. Every activity, every writing activity that is, comes with a completed example. Okay, it's always here. Click this link to view an example worksheet. So if you open that, it's not downloadable, unfortunately, but it will take you to a PDF and you can see a previous student's effort. So don't forget about that, okay? Because so many students just skip looking at the models, but the models can be incredibly helpful, right? You can see how someone else has completed the assignment. So don't forget about those, please. One can learn a lot by studying examples. Okay, now let me get back to the lecture. So let's jump into talking about ad analysis. Oh, this is an image you'll see in pretty much every lecture. The class, every week of this, we have 4 weeks, okay? Every week is devoted to a different stage in the writing process. So for week 1, we're here. You'll choose an ad and you'll brainstorm ideas, okay? You're going to take a look at that ad and fill out that worksheet. Week 2 will be kind of here. Talking about research. Yes, there is some research that will be required for this essay. And organizing your information. Okay, now in week 1, you've brainstormed. In week 2, you're going to complete an outline. Okay, so you're going to take that information and put it in order. In week 3, you're going to write a draft based on that outline. In week 4, you'll get feedback both from me and your peers and revise. Okay, so every week is devoted to a separate stage in the process. But yeah, we're building toward a single essay. Okay, so we're taking it step by step. And there's just a repeat of what I've gone over, what we're doing each week. Okay, let's jump into ad analysis. Actually, I think I have these slides slightly out of order. Let me skip ahead one. Yeah, let's begin here. I want you to think in terms of 3s. Okay, why 3? Because at the end of this session, we're going to talk about thesis statements. Okay, and for your thesis, you will need to identify 3 things going on in the ad. Okay, I'll define thesis statements later, But for now, understand that, yeah, your thesis statement, which you've probably heard that term before, you know that the thesis is a super important sentence. Your thesis sentence is going to have to identify 3 things that you see in the ad, 3 important things. What should you be looking for? I think in general, we can break these things that you're looking for in the ad into 2 broad categories. The first is formal qualities. Another word would be technical qualities. So these are issues of color, sound, music, camera work, etc. Okay, so like the nuts and bolts stuff, like technically how is it put together, or thematic qualities. So this is the non-technical stuff. This could be theme, motif, okay, issues of character, story. I put that in quotation marks because maybe there's not a true story, but sometimes television commercials do kind of tell a story. Audience, etc. Okay, so a mixture of both technical issues and non-technical issues. I'm not going to bring it up again, but if you can remember the Altoids ad with the little boy in black and white, like theme is working powerfully in that ad. Okay, it's doing something. The overall look of the ad. Yeah, there are technical things you could concentrate on, like the ad's use of color, but theme is working powerfully in that ad as well. So let's look at an ad. Now let me go back. Oops, not that one. Here's an ad for Jeep. Now let me just say that you do not see both images at the same time. Okay, this is just revealing the trick. You only see what's on the left. If you were to open up a magazine or see this ad online, you would only see what's on the left here. And as you can see, it looks like, okay, that's a giraffe's head with the word Jeep written above and below the image, right side up and upside down. And then there's this tagline. I don't know if you can see it clearly, but it says, see whatever you want to see. And this tagline is right side up and upside down. Okay, so the upside down, I think, encourages you to kind of look at the image upside down, and then you see the trick. Okay, looked at one way, it's a giraffe's head. Looked at another way, it's a penguin. There are a couple more ads in this Jeep series. Let me just show you because I think it's a pretty nifty trick they do. Here's another one. Okay, so looked at one way, it's a deer head. Looked at another way, it's a seal. Here's one more. Okay, an elephant and a turkey. So it's a pretty neat visual trick. Now, what I'm going to ask from you is, even though maybe you're super uncomfortable, you haven't done ad analysis before, you're hearing me, the instructor, saying, okay, you're going to have to identify 3 things, 3 important things that stand out to you. For right now, just don't overthink things. Just start typing in the chat, what are things that seem interesting to you in this ad? Don't worry if you're right or not. Just what stands out to you. Like what? Ultimately, we're trying to answer the question, why does an ad creator do what he or she does? After all, ad agencies are paid literally millions of dollars to come up with these ad campaigns. So nothing they do is accidental. Okay, they don't wing it. So we're asking you to focus and identify 3 things, okay? 3 decisions that they've made. Okay, let's see. Samuel says tagline. Sean says choice of background. Okay, yeah, background is important. Let's put that. Khalil says the shock value of the visual trick. Okay, yeah, I don't know if it's shock value, because shock value to me means like, well, yeah, literally you're shocked, either because it's, I don't know, graphically violent or overly sexual. I don't see this as shocking, but okay, there's the visual trick, right? The reversible image. Khalil also says color. Okay, good. Let's start there, because both Sean and Khalil make good points. Background and color. Can anybody make the case? Because I would, that color and background are important. Notice the color is this kind of beige, khaki. And it's not just a solid background. It's got this kind of textile, this woven quality, kind of like fabric. Why would they do that? Like, why this color? By the way, that's getting at the heart of ad analysis. Looking at one aspect and answering the question, why? Why this color? Why this background? Okay, Samuel says it adds depth to the picture. Okay, I'm going to be devil's advocate and say that, couldn't that be for any car ad? right? I'm going to argue that there's something specifically about Jeep that this background and this kind of textile fabric-y, I know that's not a word, I'm just making it up, this fabric-like background works for Jeep, but it wouldn't. Okay, good. John says it gives you a sense of the outdoors, right? This is an earth tone, beige, or khaki. Khaki, I like that color better because when we think of khaki, uh, yeah, and it's not just the earth tone, but even that fabric quality thing. Sean says the juxtaposition of a very down to earth fabric with the down to earth persona of Jeep. Okay, good. Yeah, that's getting at it. Because, I mean, literally, what is this? Not just the color, but the quality of the background remind you of? If you had to think of things that exist out there, right? I think of like a burlap sack or canvas, like canvas tent, or quite literally khaki clothing, right? So lots of like earthy, outdoorsy things. Does this make sense, by the way? Can people kind of see maybe a light bulb going off? Like, oh, yeah. It's not just a blue or a pink background that looks nice, but it actually makes sense. This is Jeep, right? We all know what Jeep means. We all have that image of Jeep. And let me bring up something quickly. I wasn't going to bring it up in today's session, but I've done all the assignments for this class. I didn't fill out a worksheet, a week 1 worksheet, but I have completed an outline and an essay. And I did it for 2 reasons. One, because I wanted to see what it was like to complete these assignments. I think that's always valuable for an instructor to do, ideally. And second, yeah, I wanted to create even more models. You already have for every assignment a past student example, but I wanted to contribute another example. So ultimately, you won't see this until week 3, but I've written a full essay on that Jeep ad. And as you can see here, I'm having some problems moving stuff around because my computer is overworked. But okay, you can see in my introduction paragraph, we'll talk next week about the purpose of each paragraph. But the introduction, you ideally want to kind of come up with a clever or interesting way to begin. I riff on the very idea of Jeep. Okay, Jeep, the well-known brand, practically markets itself with its reputation for ruggedness, independence, and adventure. Then I quote someone who says that Jeep is the most copied brand of American vehicles. Then I continued riffing on the image of Jeep. The Jeep spirit and the loyalty that this motor car inspires is hardwired into our cultural consciousness. One can easily picture a driver behind the wheel of a Jeep, downshifting around a snaking mountain bend, or kicking up dust through the sun-baked Australian outback, or zooming past zebras grazing the Serengeti. Okay? Like that's Jeep, right? We either associate it with sometimes the military, but also, yeah, off-roading in general or safaris. You're not going to take a BMW or a Honda out to go see. Let me get back to my keynote. Right? You're not going to take a BMW or a Honda to go see giraffes and penguins, but you would in a Jeep. John saying, what would be the meaning of the color of the animal? Well, actually, let's get to the animal thing, okay? Because I would argue, I'm not sure the animals are really colored. It's more like it's a very minimal ad. At first glance, it doesn't really seem like it has that much going on, but I would argue it does. Certainly, the color and background choice is important. I'm not sure I could say anything about the coloring of, because it's except for the beige background, it's a fairly colorless ad. Again, the choice to use the reversible animal imagery, and maybe we've already answered this question. Like, why does it do this? Why have a series of ads featuring animals? Again, maybe it's a silly question because I think we've kind of already answered it, right? It's kind of the same thing. If we think of the image of Jeep, off-roading, independence, adventure, right? This trick, even though it's a cute trick, would this make sense if it were used in a Honda ad? No. I mean, people might think it's a cute trick, but it wouldn't really make sense. But it does for the Jeep ad. So what I want you to see is that subtle choices do reinforce things like brand. Jeep knows its brand. Jeep knows that if you look at this ad subconsciously, without even thinking about it, it's going to feel like the kind of ad that you would associate with Jeep. Okay. Let's move on. Let's take a look at another example. This ad here, and just start shouting stuff out. Like, what stands out to you? I should note this is an older ad. It's from the early 1970s. You can kind of tell. I still use it because A, I think it works good as an example, and B, there are retro ads out there. I don't know if you guys remember, it was probably 2 or 3 years ago. There was an ad from Jose Cuervo that supposedly took place, it's set on a private jet for the Rolling Stones 1975 tour. The Rolling Stones don't appear in the ad, but it's supposedly the tour jet, and it's filled with colorful characters. And the ad has a lot of fun playing with what people look like in 1975. Okay, so what stands out to us here? John says the car. Okay. Other things? The woman. Okay, but what about the car and the woman? Because remember, we're working towards three things. Ultimately, here, I'm sorry for going back and forth so much, but let me show you what we're working toward. The thesis is the final sentence of what will be your opening paragraph. And the thesis is like a roadmap for the rest of the paper. Okay, so you have an introduction, and the final sentence kind of sets up the rest of the paper. And this is where you're going to list your three things. So here, through the use of simple color, 1, playful imagery, so that animal imagery, 2, and a double meaning tagline that reinforces theme, the Jeep ad appeals to blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it's here that you're going to list your three things. So this isn't one of the approved ads, of course, but if people said, this ad uses a car and a woman, I would say, okay, but what is it? Let's see. Khalil says the lights. There is something there, okay? Lighting is working, I think, in an interesting way. John says how the car is behind the woman. Tremaine says the clothes in the older model car. Okay, lots of good stuff here. Let's start with Tremaine's comment. The clothes in the older model car. Yeah, it's an older model car because it's from the 1970s, but still, the clothing too. Obviously, this is from the 1970s, but there is something about the clothes. Okay, which Samuel is, I think, getting at. Okay, the woman looks like she's in control. Yeah, let's keep in mind this is the early 1970s. Gosh, there's so many things to say. I don't want to jump in so many different directions. Now, someone's saying color. Yes, color is also very important. But look at the tagline. Your mother wouldn't like it. The ad is obviously aimed at men, okay? And what is it that your mother wouldn't like? Well, your mother wouldn't like this type of woman, right? Because what does this woman kind of represent? And this is where Tremaine's comment about the clothes are important, or Samuel's comment about how she looks in control. She's independent, okay? She's dressed in a modern style. We're adults, so we can point out the fact she's braless. Remember, we're talking about the late 1960s, early 1970s. So we're talking about feminism being, I don't want to say at its height because it's still going strong, but this was kind of the rise of the movement. So things like bra burning. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the woman at all. But to a traditional old-fashioned mother, yeah, she might look at this woman as, why is she dressed like that? She's too fiery. She's too independent. She's too forward-thinking. She's an independent woman. Of course, what your mother wouldn't like is exactly what makes this car and this woman appealing. As Sean says, free sex movement. Yeah, open attitudes, right? You can look at her and automatically guess that she's a free spirit. She's probably more progressive. I don't mean politically, although she might be as well. Okay. And yeah, there is a connection between the woman and the car. So when I said earlier that just saying the woman, just saying the car isn't enough, that doesn't mean that they're not important, but you have to connect to something. For example, layout, right? The car and the woman are front and center. And they're linked, okay? It's not coincidence that they're put next to each other. The car and the woman are both examples of things your mother would not like. A free-spirited woman, a free-spirited car. What's the cliche? That this might appeal to men going through a mid-age crisis? right? Middle-age crisis, when they want to be with a woman like this and be driving a car like this. Khalil says it's almost like saying getting a car like that means you will end up with that type of woman. Yeah, there's that connection, absolutely, right? That your mother wouldn't approve of. I do want to get back to, because there were other good things that were people were saying. Samuel says breaking the mold of the times, absolutely. But Khalil's point, I think he also mentioned lighting and color. Yeah, they're also important too. Look how reds and yellows, orangish colors dominate. Why? Or how do we describe those colors? Okay, because again, no choice in an ad is accidental. So it's not a brightly lit day with just neutral colors, or no, it's lots of, yeah, good. Sean says strong colors, warm. Khalil says intense. Yes, good, good. Uh, I would say like languid, sensual, right? I mean, red can sometimes mean danger, actually that would work here as well. But it's more than just that. It's sexual, but I want to push it farther than just saying sex sells, which someone said earlier. Yes, that's going on here, but it's more than just the broad sex sells. It's seen in everything. The woman's pose, as someone said. It's seen in the link between the woman and the car, but it's also seen in this lighting. Okay, these warm colors, these sensual colors. I think people understand. People, yeah, Cleo. It has a lustful quality to it. Good. People get what I'm saying, right? Because sometimes I stumble too in how to describe it, but there is something about the overall coloring of the image. You can't even quite tell what time of day it is. This is either maybe it's turning into evening, dusk, right? Maybe it's late at night, but notice too little things like this, the overall environment. I don't know if we have any film buffs here, but you can see this movie poster. And you can even see what the movie is here, Last Tango in Paris. That's not accident either. She's not just standing in in front of a movie theater. It's in front of a movie theater playing Last Tango in Paris. And if you're not familiar with that film, even for the time it came out, the early 1970s, it is an incredibly sexually frank film. Even by 2018 standards, it would be probably controversial. It is very sexually explicit. It was nominated for Oscars. It had Marlon Brando. It's a serious art film, but it is very sexually frank. This film is a kind of film that your mother would not approve of, right? Your mother would never go into this theater to see this film. She would think this is a dirty film. Okay, so even that touch, what film is playing, what theater, okay, is showing this film, kind of put even small things like this guy who's staring off in the, is he staring at the woman in the car, both? So lots of things. But if we had to nail three, we could do it, right? We could you could write about the ad's use of lighting, the ad's use of color, the ad's linking of the woman in the car, the ad's layout. Okay, so you have like 4 or 5, the overall environment or setting. You have 4 or 5 things you could choose from. You just need to identify 3. Uh, yeah, as Samuel said, the woman's yellow shirt, the yellow lights. Yes, all these colors are connected. Okay, that kind of sensual, warm, lustful, languid. Those are adjectives I would use. Let's look at one more ad. And I'm going to, let me see. I'm going to put this, I'm going to play it as well, but I'm going to give you the link. Ooh, it didn't copy. Hold on. I'm having lots of trouble with my computer. I think I have too many things open. Here, let me try closing some stuff. Like the movie I was watching. Oh my gosh, I can't even get things to right click. You ever have this where your computer is almost completely shut down? Can people still hear me okay? I hope it's not affecting my audio. Ah, I cannot get anything to to work. Uh, Hold on. Hold on just 1 second, okay? I really do want to get some things closed. Quit. There we go. Let me close Microsoft Word too, even though I'd like... Before I do so, let me just show what we're ultimately working toward. We are working toward a 5-paragraph essay. My completed G paper is really just 3 pages long. 1, 2, 3. And the reason I insist on 3s is because the 3 things you identify here, color, imagery, tagline, will become your 3 middle paragraphs, your 3 body paragraphs, okay? So here's a paragraph all about the ad's use of color, the Jeep ad. Here's a paragraph entirely about the ad's use of imagery. And then one about tagline, and then there's a conclusion. So this is what we're working towards. So let me close this too. No, I don't want to save. Okay, I'm getting some power back now. Good. So let's take a look at this ad. I'm going to crank up the sound, even if it's going to annoy my neighbors. But you should be able to hear my sound coming through. So, hold on. And the link is broken. Okay, this happened last month too. So it's Diet Coke, tall, dark, and handsome. Okay, so that link I sent you won't work. It's 16 seconds. So I'll show it twice, but already start thinking about what are things that stand out to you. Okay, so I'm going to play it one more time. If I play it more than that, I'm going to get yelled at because it's super loud when I play it. But oops, I didn't mean to go to the next. Here we go. One more time. Okay, so start shouting things out. What stands out to you? Samus says refreshing and tasty. That might be true, but that's not really an analysis of the ad. Okay? And be careful, because I do see that a lot where people explain like the effect of the ad, like it makes me want to drink. But that's not ad analysis. Ad analysis is quite literally pinpointing things that are important. Okay, so Khalil says the music, the camera. Yes. John says a similar thing. The way the camera pans up from top to bottom. Great. Samuel says the color of the drink. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to shoot down ideas, but I do want to kind of point out like what's more on track. I mean, what the color of cola is the color of cola, right? So I'm not sure the color of the drink is super important. But camera movement, absolutely. And by the way, what is it about music? And here, this time I'll play it without sound. Okay, so let me mute this. But what is it about music? What is it about this camera angle? Why is the ad doing this? Or what is the ad playing with? Sean says drawing your focus. Okay, but that's too literal of an answer. Lots of things can draw your focus. I would suggest it's something more specific than that. Khalil says the way they use words that are usually used to describe a good-looking man are used for a drink. Okay, I think we're getting close, right? The ad is called Tall, Dark, and Handsome. That's usually how we think about it, right? A man, a good-looking man, tall, dark, and handsome. Samus is captivating your attention. Right, but you got to be much more specific than that when you choose your chosen ad. Like, and I know it's frustrating because ad analysis is not ad description. It's not generally talking about an ad and saying it makes me thirsty or it grabs my attention. No, I mean, we have to really focus on a very specific thing. For example, Cleo says the music speeds up the feeling and the movement is slow. Okay, but I think we're missing something really, really big and really obvious. Okay, so let me ask this. Would you describe this ad as neutral? Serious? Humorous? Like, what does your gut tell you? watching this ad. And yes, I will tell you, both camera movement and music are important. But I think we're kind of dancing around the issue of why they're important. And again, it's pretty obvious. Eventually, I'll just go ahead and say it. But okay, Samuel, you say serious. I would ask you to consider Khalil and Sean when they say sexy and humorous. Okay, because how do we describe that music? That funky waka waka. Like, what is it reminding you of? What is it going for there? And think of the ad's title, Tall, Dark, and Handsome. Okay, so it's already playing with the idea that it's not a tall, dark, and handsome man. It's a tall, dark, and handsome glass of Coke. Okay, good. Sean is saying it's personifying the drink. But why that music? Okay, good, Khalil. Now we're getting closer at it, right? We associate it with like cheesy, yeah, sometimes adult entertainment, or it's always used when it's trying, like in movies, that's the kind of music that plays even in a comedy, like those Ron Burgundy movies. I'm not saying it uses that music, but that kind of mood, right? It's a send up of sexy music. It's a send up of the music you would put on to maybe change the mood. Uh, okay, good, Samuel. That's closer to it. If it reminds you of Starsky and Hutch, that's important because think of that. That's a show from the 1970s. And yeah, today that music kind of makes us smile because it either reminds us of older times or it reminds us of, again, cheesy, either adult entertainment or, yeah, it's sexy music. Okay. I mean, I'll play a little bit of the music one more time, but not too much because it really is loud. But listen, right? That's so maybe we can figure out the second thing too. Why this camera movement? Why is it panning the glass slowly? Where do we see that as well? Or yeah, where do we see that kind of camera movement typically? Slowly panning up. Yeah, Samuel, it definitely has an attitude. This ad. Cheesy modeling. John says when a movie is showing a hot woman. Okay, good. Khalil. In movies when the attractive character enters the scene. Great. Samuel says, oh, a woman pole dancing. But no, you're all getting at the same thing, right? We see this in movies when, yeah, it's a person. And I'll put aside for a moment this is kind of a reversal on that because in movies it's almost exclusively women, right? They're reduced to, you see their ankle, then the camera pans up their leg, and then it keeps going up. I recently saw, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Naked Gun movies, but there's a joke in there where it's going up the woman's legs, but the legs keep going and going and going. This woman would have to be like 30 feet tall. But it's having fun with that notion that we've seen that trope so often. It slowly scans the person's body from either bottom to top or almost always bottom to top because the face gets revealed last. Men, you don't see that as much unless someone is exclusively doing so for humor's sake or because someone's trying to reverse that trend. Uh, but yeah, is this making sense now to everybody though? We've looked at three ads. In the Jeep ad, we identified the importance of color, the background, the choice to even use animal imagery. In the second ad, also an automobile ad, we talked about the importance of lighting, the linking of the woman in the car, the use of colors, the use of setting. Here, it's the choice of music, the camera movements, and how these are deliberate choices. Okay, so when you choose that ad, remember I said don't choose an ad just based on, oh, that looks cool. Okay, yeah, maybe you love to play Call of Duty, but if you can't spot things in the Call of Duty ad, then maybe you shouldn't choose it. Although I do think the Call of Duty ad is probably one of the easier ads. But yeah, think of what we've gone through today. When you choose your ad, whether it's a commercial or a print ad, try to spot three important things, three important details, not just general impressions like, "Ooh, that looks yummy," or that that focuses the attention. No, like be very, very specific. It's use of color. It's choice of music. Because ultimately we're trying to answer the question why. Why this music? Why this camera movement? Why this? Why that? If we're answering questions why, then we know we're getting at analysis. Okay. Ultimately, your reader should learn something from your analysis. It's not like they might see the Jeep ad and automatically see these things, but once they're told, the reader should think, oh, yeah, that makes total sense. Or the Diet Coke ad we just watched. Oh, yeah, the music is working that way. Or that is clever. In other words, I'm not asking you to like read between the lines and find some deeply symbolic reading. No, I just want you to identify choices that the ad makes. Okay. And that's your task, because your task is to choose an ad. So one of these 8 approved ads, and then complete this worksheet, which I just closed because the computer was here. Let me open up the completed one. That shouldn't be such a drag on my machine. Okay, so here's a completed worksheet. And this is on the Diet Coke ad. So some questions are very simple. What is the title of your ad? It's Tall, Dark, and Handsome. Okay, and then for what company or organization was the ad created? I'm not going to walk through all the prompts, but be careful. This one says, describe the ad as if you were explaining its visuals and other details to someone who has never seen it before. But there's more. Okay, so you are explaining the ad as if to someone else who's never seen it, but it also says identify specific details that stand out, such as space, lighting, sound effects, music, camera angles, etc. Okay, because sometimes students stop, they read the bold part, but they don't continue reading. So they describe the ad, but they don't really identify important details. Because in number 4, it asks you why these details are important. So this is where, for example, everything in the ad reminds me of a sex scene in a movie. The music has a sexy vibe. The words used to describe the drink could be used to describe a good-looking man. The camera even moves up the glass of Coke like it might move up a person's body. The ad's message seems to be that Diet Coke is as good as a sexy romantic partner. Now, here's the good news. You guys identified all this stuff. Yeah, I had to push and be a little bit, had to reject some ideas because I'm the mean instructor, but you all got here, all of you. Samuel and Sean and John, all 3 of the ads. You guys did get to all the important stuff. Now you just have to do the exact same thing with your chosen ad from that approved list. Most of these other prompts are self-explanatory. Let me just explain 2 that maybe confuse people. Here it says list 3 possible tactics, techniques based on the details discussed above. This always confuses people, and I wish we would reword this. But basically, they're just asking for, list those 3 things that you noticed. Okay, those 3, yes, tactics, techniques, strategies. Those 3, if it's color, music, and I don't know, lighting, then these are your 3 things. And then those 3 things get listed in your thesis. Okay, so we ask for you to try 2 different thesis statements. And I forgot, we got to define thesis real quickly. The reason we ask for 2 is because maybe one will be better worded than the other. Or maybe you have lots of good ideas, but you're having trouble identifying which 3 are your strongest. So if you give me 2 shots at it, I might be able to say this one's better than the other. Or I might say you have your 3 thesis points, but you have 2 great ones here and 1 great one here, so combine them. And finally, prompt 10 asks for research ideas. You don't have to do research. And you shouldn't just say things like, I'm going to Google. No, you should give me some idea, again, what you might research. Okay, and you get an example here. She's going to do research into camera movement, what that shot is called, that camera shot is called, looking into cinematography, music, sex and advertising. Okay, so give me an idea of what you might generally research. Real quickly, because I'm pushing past the hour. Let me skip some of this stuff. Okay, we did talk about this, but just so I formally define it, a thesis is like the roadmap to the paper. Okay, it's typically the final sentence of your opening paragraph because it leads into what's going to come. Okay, so a thesis, it's best explained if we look at examples. Here's the Jeep thesis. Through the use of simple color, playful imagery, and a double meaning tagline. So there's my 3 things: color, imagery, tagline. The see whatever you want to see ad appeals to the inner adventure inside everyone to unlock an enthusiasm for Jeep. And here's the Diet Coke thesis. The Diet Coke Tall, Dark, and Handsome ad uses uses sexually charged language and seductive music and slow camera movement to convince sophisticated women to buy into the idea that drinking Diet Coke is as fulfilling as a heteronormative romance. It's just a fancy language for, a relationship between man and woman. But you can see her 3 points, right? Language, so the actual tall, dark, and handsome. Music, camera movement. Those are her 3 things. Those will become the 3 main points of her paper. A good way to think about it, and I'm going to end the session on this note, is that thesis basically looks like this. At its most basic, the blank ad uses blank, blank, and blank in order to blank. Okay? So the McDonald's ad uses A, B, and C in order to. The Diet Coke ad uses sexy music, camera movement, and whatever the third thing was, language. Okay? And you can reverse the order of this. You can play with it however you want, but that's the basic thing you're aiming for. And if you look at the examples again, both of these do this, right? The blank ad, Diet Coke, uses blank, blank, and blank. Same thing with the Jeep thesis. Okay, but here it's reversed. First, we get the list of things through the use of simple color, imagery, tagline. Okay, so you can structure things, you have control over that, but ultimately, you're doing this. And the worksheet asks you to take a couple of stabs at creating a thesis. I'm most interested in seeing what your 3 thesis points are. Okay, that's what I'm going to be most interested in, because you'll need those in order to move forward to the next stage, which is the second assignment for week 2, which we'll talk about in the next session. Okay, so we technically went, just over an hour. So now I'm going to open up things to questions. If you have questions about the class as a whole, or ad analysis, or the week 1 assignment, ask away. If you are comfortable with what we've gone over, I'm not going to force you to stay. I thank you so much for attending, and we'll do this not next week because we have next week off, but the following Tuesday, whatever date that is, the 10th, I think. Okay. So yeah, if you're completely clear with what we've gone over, you're free to enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll hang out for a little bit and answer questions. Thank you, Samuel. You did great too. Honestly, you guys did awesome. I always feel terrible when I have to say things like, no, that's not quite right, or you got to be more specific. But I am very happy. You guys, each of those ads, you were able to target things that were interesting and important. Now just do the exact same thing with your chosen ad. For instance, I'll even give a hint. If you choose the Call of Duty ad, why do they use that song? They use a song in that ad, a popular rock song. Why that rock song? It goes beyond just it's an upbeat or it's a cool song or it's a well-known song. That's part of it, sure. But there's a stronger reason. So there, I've given you a hint. What does the last slide say, Cleo? Oh, yeah, I didn't get to it. Just a reminder, the more detailed you are now, the easier it will be to write your essay next week. That needs some fixing because you're not writing the essay next week. You're actually going to work on an outline, but it is true. The more effort you put into that worksheet, the more you give me, the more I can work with. For example, I often see sometimes the thesis statements aren't quite there, but the worksheet has great ideas. And I'm able to say to the student, wow, you have like 5 great ideas here. You need to take 3 of them and put them in your thesis statement. But yeah, the ideas are there. So the worksheet is graded more on effort and how closely it's matching what was presented in this session. But yeah, for me, the most important thing is somewhere in your worksheet, do you have the ideas? I'm less worried about everything being answered perfectly or correctly. I just want, because if I can point you right to the 3 great ideas you have, then you can just, you're good. You're good. You're golden. You can go right into week 2. But yeah, you need my feedback. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording now. Okay, there we go. I think my machine is so screwed up. Here, let me close this finally. I might still be recording. If I am, if people are still watching, you can turn this off. My computer is so overworked, I can't even get the recording to stop. Here, let me try to stop it now. Okay, now it stopped.